Ngā mihi nui o tēnei pō kia koutou. We're very excited to be at this stage of the project. It's had a long development process, and there are many people behind this initiative, many partners, many experts. And we're going to be hearing from this team tonight as they explain the project's concept, its history, its vision and purpose, the funding and the construction. You'll hear the perspectives of some of the partners and stakeholders who've been part of the design process, and some of the history of the public consultation that's taken place already for the pathway. And finally, and really importantly, you're going to learn how you can have your say on aspects of the walkway that will help to make this place, the walkway, a place of meaning and usefulness and even fun for you and your community. I hope you're going to enjoy tonight. There's some interesting information to come. So let's introduce our first speaker, who's Jill Thurlow. So Jill's from Auckland Council, the local parks pathway lead, and she's going to provide us with a project overview. Kia ora, Jill.
Kia ora, Annette. Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai, ko Jill Thurlow, toku ingoa. And hi everyone, I'm Jill Thurlow. I work for Auckland Council as the local parks path lead for Te Whau Pathway project. I've been involved in the project for about 3 years, and it's a real pleasure to be here tonight because this is quite a milestone for the project to be presenting the preliminary design for people to be feeding back onto it. It's just great. So I'm going to start with an overview and where the pathway will go. So Te Whau Pathway is a shared path, and it's going to connect between the Waitemata and the Manukau harbours. So that one end, we've got Te Atatū South near the second exit on State Highway 16, and at the other end, we've got the Green Bay Beach. So it will be Auckland's only mainly off-road route to connect between the two harbours, following the historic portage of the Whau River, or celebrating it. Through the pathway and the project, we're really keen. We want to connect people to the places, to each other, to the green spaces, and to the awa. It's an amazing opportunity, and it will be an amazing experience. So in total, if we count the connector paths, there's about 15 kilometres of pathway and just over 11 if we're talking about that main alignment. And with the main alignment, we'll have 4 metre wide boardwalk and 3 metre wide concrete paths. And as you can see from this graphic, it's a really good example of this connection between the two harbours. And you'll also see that we've sort of colour coded this through here. So that's for the different sections of the pathway, and that's really a management tool. It's a very large project, and so we've broken that down into sections, and it'll be delivered in sections. So that's the pathway. In terms of the project, Te Whau Pathway project is a partnership project, and it's been a collaborative effort to get to this stage. There's been some pretty major milestones from its first inception in 2014. So the origins of the project, well, the idea was first seeded in 2014, and it was championed by the community as a greenways connection. As I said, the decision was made to build the pathway in sections, and so concrete footpaths have been developed and built in some of the local paths. There's been extensive community consultation on the pathway design, which has informed the concept design and the founding landscape and landscape design plans. A real key year for the project was 2020, when the resource consent was obtained for the whole alignment. And it was also the year that we were fortunate to get some government funding for the shovel-ready projects. The build, as I said, the construction of the sections of Te Whau Pathway have been underway already. So in 2015, we built some concrete paths in Archibald Park, Ken Maunda Park, Olympic and McLeod Parks. 2018 was for pathways in Robertsfield and Tiraroa Ave. And most recently, we've constructed some pathway in the Rysel Reserve section in Avondale, and that's as part of the shovel-ready build. It's been through a large amount of effort from our project partners, who I'll introduce to you soon, that we've built 3.7 kilometres of the pathway through the local parks to date. And the majority of the path is still to be built, and that will be done in stages as funding becomes available. Yeah, it's all looking pretty good. So this is a really great overview of the pathway and its connections to other networks. You'll see the pathway as this bold pink line through here. Where the areas are dotted, that's the sections that I just mentioned that we've built already. But the really exciting thing here is that the Whau pathway connection will go to the Newlyn Avondale shared path, onto the Waterview shared path, and then you can go onto the Northwestern Cycleway. So what that does is it completes a pretty unique 21 kilometre loop, which is a really exciting addition to Auckland's growing walking and cycling path network. The build and the funding, the things that everybody's really interested in. So as I said, 2020 was the turning point in relation to the Pathways funding. As a result of COVID-19 and the pandemic, central government considered funding infrastructure projects that had a value of over $10 million. So these shovel-ready projects needed to have an immediate stimulatory effect on the construction industry, the workforce and the economy. And so for Auckland Council, we applied for the infrastructure funding and we were successful. So Crown Infrastructure Partners, the central government body, agreed to fund $35 million towards the design of the whole pathway and construction of sections 2 and 5 of the pathway. This is where our first shovel went in the ground through this project into the Rysel Reserve. And here we are, waiting and looking forward to your feedback on the preliminary design. I guess it needs to be noted that when we submitted the proposal to CIP, it was based on 2017 concept plans. And since then, developed the design to the preliminary stage. And the design that you'll see today has been based on all the information from previous consultation. The resource consent conditions have needed to be taken into account, as well as those early foundation documents. So the preliminary design of sections 2 and 5 has informed us, and we now know what's possible to construct with the available CIP funding. So Auckland Council can now confirm that we are progressing with the detailed design of areas 1 and 2, which are within section 2 and 5, and the construction will begin on one of these sections, at least one of these sections next year, following more design work. So once we get our preliminary design feedback in, then that will inform the detailed design. So Area 1 is in the Henderson-Massey Local Board, and it's between Robertsfield and the State Highway 16, the Northwestern Cycleway. So it's a really valuable link. And in Area 2 in the Whau Local Board, pathway will run from Wingate Street through Rysel Reserve to that really important crossing across the Awa to Rata Street. This is the Henderson-Massey section. So there are a lot of factors impacting on how much boardwalk we could build, and early in the design phase, design decisions relating to durability in the marine environment, earthquake sustainability, a requirement for a 50+ year design life with minimum maintenance. All of these considerations had to be taken into account. We wanted to build a long-lasting structure. We have 168 plus resource consent conditions we need to respond to. We're very much aware of the building supply and construction costs in the current markets. And so our design has to respond to all of those factors, as well as managing risk and the uncertainty around ground conditions. So those are some of the factors that have impacted on how much of the boardwalk we've been able to progress in the design and then the eventual build. This is the section in Avondale in the Whau Local Board, and this is the pathway we'll be building. This, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, it's a slightly blue coloured path. This is our shovel ready that we've just finished. We've got a little bit more to do here, a little bit more at each end of the pathway, but this is that key crossing across the Awa. So if you do want to have a look at at these in any detail, please go to our website. Te Whau Pathway project is a collaborative partnership, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our project partners. We've got Te Kaurau Maki, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, Auckland Council, Auckland Transport, Henderson Massey Local Board, Whau Local Board, and the Whau Coastal Walkway Environmental Trust. Without them, the project wouldn't have progressed as we have, and so we're very grateful for their ongoing support.
Thanks, Jill. That's great. I love that historic connection to the waka portage. And it's also good as Aucklanders that we get some silver lining to COVID-19 with getting that government support to build this. Let's go to Tony Miguel, the Whau Coastal Walkways Environmental Trust, one of those partners that Jill just mentioned, and instrumental in kicking off this whole idea. So kia ora, Tony.
Yeah, kia ora, Annette. So I'm Tony Miguel. I'm the chair of the Whau Coastal Walkway Environmental Trust. I just want to give you a quick overview of what the trust's about and what our objectives are. So just a brief snapshot of the project. You'll see there the area of influence, and the modelling carried out by traffic specialists shows that when it's completed, it'll attract 340,000 pedestrians and cyclists each year, and almost an equal amount. So there's going to be a mix of recreational and commuter cyclists. Just a snapshot of the Whau Coastal Walkway Environmental Trust. We were established in 2015 with the whole purpose of promoting the community and linking the community to the Whau River. So our vision is to construct a shared pathway linking the Manukau and Waitemata harbours, and at the same time achieve social, cultural, economic, environmental health benefits. We believe this is a unique feature of the project. It's not just a bit of infrastructure. We really want to deliver some real benefits for the community. We have 4 main objectives. The first one is around the build, which is to promote and construct a multifunctional walkway to improve the conditions of life of members of the public at large. So the originally our trust raised funding through the Trust Charity Foundation, Trust Community Foundation. So we just want to acknowledge the support from TTCF and also the support from the Auckland Council, who have spent, I can't remember the exact amount, but Auckland Council has already put in about $12 million into the project. And also want to acknowledge central government, who, by stroke of luck due to COVID, funded $35.3 million last year. So apart from the build, very, very dear to our heart is the restoration of water quality in the coastal environment, covering the whole Whau catchment area. So conceptually, the pathway will be the main ecological corridor linking the Waitemata and Manukau harbours. And to achieve that, we really need to work with partners to restore the whole of the Whau River catchment. Another dimension is to engage the community through public and functional art. So you'll see that already there's some examples of that. This one is at Archibald Park. That seating area was funded by Transpower as part of their community offsets due to the power lines. Next year, we'll be starting working with artists to come up with art interventions and also engage with the community in the detailed planning of the arts. Very, very important that we look at providing a sense of place. And just as important is acknowledging the heritage of the area. So we're really keen that we weave into the pathway the history of mana whenua, the role of the portage, how there was actually a vital trade route, and also probably a little known fact that Auckland was practically built on the Whau. When we look at the history of all the brickworks that produce bricks, produce all the clay pipes, they were essential elements in the development of Auckland. Of course, the famous Crownland pottery. So we're really keen that in the design elements and the delivery of the project, we include the rich cultural heritage of the area. So what happens next? This year, we really haven't made a lot of progress because of COVID. Every time we've had something planned, we'd end up going backwards. But next year, this is sort of the priorities. One is acknowledge the diverse community. So interestingly enough, in this area, there's a large proportion of Maori, Pacifica, Indian communities, Chinese, and Europeans, and they also vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. So how do we engage those diverse communities? Consult on the design, which is what we do at the moment. Environmental education. So this would really be about practical environmental projects. It could be building rain gardens and schools, something that really engages the kids. We've had a number of suggestions from the community about how to do that. Develop an integrated plan, attracting visitors. So we'll be putting up ideas to attract visitors to the whole Whau destination. Events, look at environmental restoration through a wide range of techniques. Water activation, so one of the strategies is to get people out in the water, and we're really hoping that maybe 2023 we'll be able to arrange a portage event, and the arts program, and also including cultural and heritage stores and markets. So that's a brief snapshot. Just really want to be clear that the project is more than just building a bit of infrastructure. We really want to reach out to the community next year in developing the way forward.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. So we're learning it's not just a walkway or a cycleway, but an ecological corridor, looking to restoration of the Whau River catchment and weaving in mana whenua, that sense of place and community. Fantastic, and thanks for all your work, Tony, all these years to drive this forward. The project covers the rohe of two local boards, Whau and Henderson Massey, and we're going to hear from representatives of the first of those now, from the Whau local board, Jessica Rose. Kia ora, Jessica.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jessica Rose Whau, and yes, I'm in the Whau local board. I've been a keen follower of this project since about 2015. I think as a representative of Bike Auckland, I came to some sort of opening and sod turning in about 2015 in the Olympic Park, and came to another one around about 2019, and then I think another one down recently at Reservoir Reserve, which was I think beginning of this year or end of last year. So I've just been a massive fan and supporter, and I'm really, really excited that our board has been a huge supporter of this too. As a group, we have it as a high priority for our area to increase that walking, cycling amenity, that lower emissions transport, and also that connection to nature. So we're really, really thrilled that this project is getting to where it's going, thrilled about the additional funding. We'll continue to be massive supporters, and yeah, can't wait for the delivery. Very, very keen to hear people's feedback, and yeah, thank you very much for all the hard work that the team has put into this, what will be a transformational asset for our people. So thank you, and kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, thanks, Jessica. Fantastic. Strong support there from a cyclist. Brenda Brady is the representative tonight for the Henderson Massey local board, as a member of that board. Kia ora, Brenda. Kia
ora everyone, welcome. I think some wonderful work has been done, and it's been done over many, many years. The dream, the pie in the sky was at the end of Waitakere City. I think that's when that dreaming idea came through, and it took a long time to come to fruition. Tony Miguel and some of the people involved, they have just been amazing in their passion and in the work they've done to keep this going. I just want to say that we have to dream. It's a special thing to dream, and when something wonderful like this comes to fruition, it isn't just magic, it actually is the work, really hard work of people. Henderson Massey Local Board, I've been involved in this and in Waitakere City in the old days, so I've been around a long time, not quite as long as Tony Miguel, and Henderson Massey Local Board's always supported the Te Whau pathway. It's very important. It's the mana whenua, it's that history, and it's also the ecology and the way to bring people just to change their behaviour. The PTS, the Project Twin Streams, and the trails that were built in the Waitakere days actually taught people different ways of thinking, different ways of a mode change, we call it. It just means we move around differently, and we enjoy it far more than hopping in our car and driving down the road. Henderson Massey Local Boards has funded work on Roberts Field and Turaroa Reserve, McLeod Park and around Bridge Ave. There's a lot of work to be done there, and we're continuing to work with the Te Whau pathway. We did the parks work first because we were able to fund that and we were able to do that stepping stones. This connection with the government shovel-ready projects is going to go from a very special piece of land, actually, from where you come off. If you've ever noticed where you come off at the corner there on State Highway 16, when you turn left, which you don't at the moment, but you will turn left and come to the Bridge Ave area, to pass through there, there's a very little special piece of bush that actually has mana whenua history, and that has been part of the learning. Most of us had no idea that little leafy Pahuta Kaua filled piece of bush there was important. It'll go to Rotary Reserve and Colville Park and then to Roberts Field, and Roberts Field of course connects with Roberts Road, so even though we can't do the rest of the connection at the moment because of funding, you're going to get a really wonderful connection down Roberts Field and to the new public transport connections too if you want to use it for work. There's a lot of work going on in the West and we're fighting very hard to get better PT services, better public transport services. I think the rest of it will be funded. We are coming through a time where Council and New Zealand are struggling through COVID. There's 3 budgets going to be affected by the close downs over the last couple of years, and I think all of us in our community, we understand. We're absolutely thrilled that the shovel ready money came through and then Council put a share into it as well. And we're absolutely thrilled with the team because I think some of you realise who are online just how passionate they are, and they're an absolutely wonderful team. And I want to say thank you. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Brenda. You've made some lovely points there. I mean, one is just that the Whau pathway, once again, it's not just a pathway, it connects back into the Henderson Massey Whau land and connects and touches with all sorts of other initiatives that have been going on for a while. And you also made a nice point, Brenda, about a single special piece of bush. And this is one of the things that we really want to hear from the public here tonight, those of you listening and your community and friends and neighbours and whānau. Where are those special places for you? How would you like them recognised and drawn into this project? Because this is your backyard and we need to hear what those places are for you and how that can be reflected in the pathway. Next up, we have Megan Harvey. Megan is a member of the Community Liaison Group, a group of community representatives who've been a sounding board for a number of aspects of this project. So thank you so much, Megan, for that work, and kia ora.
Pau Mārie, e mihi ana ki ngā mana whenua o te rohe ne. Ko Megan tōku ingoa no Tamaki Makaurau aho. Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan, and I'm a member of Bike Te Atatū. I'm a resident of Te Atatū South, and I'm part of the Community Liaison Group for the Te Whau Pathway. I'm here tonight to give you a quick summary of the CLG, who we are, and what we've been doing. The CLG is a cohort of interested parties from across the length of the Te Whau Pathway. Each member of the CLG has a different area of expertise, a different perspective, and together we have provided a useful pool of knowledge for the project team to test their ideas on. Some of the participant groups in the CLG include the Chinese Conservation and Education Trust, Bike Avondale and Bike Te Atatū, Whau Pacifica, Heart of Te Atatū South, the Waitakere Outrigger Canoe Club, St Mary's School Parish, the Whau Coastal Walkway Environment Trust, Barrier Free New Zealand, local board members from Whau Local Board and Henderson Massey Local Board. We've had representatives from the Whau Youth Board as well, Sport Waitakere, and also local residents from Te Atatū South, Glendine, Kelston and Avondale. I first joined the CLG in March of 2021, which was their 3rd meeting, as a representative for Bike Te Atatu and as a local resident from Te Atatu South. At that meeting, we discussed boardwalk material options. We talked about construction materials and how they would work best for people and the environment along the Whau. We had another meeting at Olympic Park where we got to walk along one of those existing sections that Tony talked us through earlier today. And we got to discuss what worked about the path designs and what we would maybe change for the boardwalks. We've also had discussions around play spaces, signage and wayfinding, road access, balustrades, lighting, and many of the other design elements that you'll see tonight. After each meeting, the project team would take our feedback along with a range of other information and then modify their designs and then present those at the next meeting about a month or so later. This allowed the project team to test their ideas and refine the pathway design along the way so that it will be ready for general public consultation at the end of this year. I'm really excited that the project has got to this point, and I can't wait to see what the results are from the public feedback. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Megan. Thanks so much for your work for the community liaison group as well. It's something that I also facilitate, and I can tell you that we what Megan didn't mention is fantastic suppers that we have. Next up, we have Anna Bush from Land Lab. They're the designers behind this particular project.
Kia ora, Annette. Kia ora, ko Anna Bush tōku ingoa. Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I'm one of the landscape architects working on this project with Land Lab. So just reiterating what Jill and others have said so far, the Whau pathway is a fantastic opportunity to connect the two harbours from the east to the west. And it's going to tie into all these existing cycle networks and make use of this historic portage route. So focusing on the design, the intention for the pathway is to have a design language that's elegant and cohesive, a sinuous nature, and one that's consistent across the whole length. It supports that idea of a one pathway connection between harbour to harbour and creating a sense of identity in place. So we've got an image up just showing a segment of the boardwalk. So as Jill mentioned, it's 4 metres wide. This is a really nice, generous, spacious width. It'll feel quite safe as well. And some of the key materials that we're looking at are FRP panels, which is the boardwalk surface. We've got concrete piles, which are a 7.5 metre span, aluminium grillage, and then balustrading, which will have a coloured finish to it. The colour is a key element and something that I know a lot of the people are interested in. So we went through quite a process to sort of land on a colour and looked at a number of options, and we were really wanting something that's visually recessive and cohesive. So something that isn't dominating, kind of complements the landscape and falls back into that background. So we ended up looking towards these goldy brown kind of colours. Which is really informed by this rich and dynamic natural and historical landscape. It reflects Te Taiao, which is the natural world, those intertidal mud flats, that nature of Te Whau, Kuaka, which is a beautiful bird which flies a really long way from Alaska through to New Zealand in one flight. It's the bar-tailed godwit. And this colour we're hoping provides a unique identity for the pathway. So as this is just a view as you're walking along the boardwalk, it's not from a particular location, it's just sort of a render for a look and feel. So this coloured steel kind of reflects the overall design narrative, as we've just touched on. And there'll be moments of timber and solid panels throughout the length, which provide opportunities for wayfinding, cultural integration, and artistic opportunities. So it's not just a boardwalk. We've got a series of designed elements that append onto the boardwalk, and these create heightened user experience and create opportunities along the pathway for interaction. So there's moments to pause, rest, access water, navigate, bird watch if you like to do that. And as Jill mentioned, we've been engaging with mana whenua throughout the process, and we are in the stage of actually developing a cultural framework alongside them that will be consistent across the boardwalk and will inform the design and the pūrākau, the storytelling of the elements. So there's opportunities to integrate pūrākau stories about the area, interpretation and wayfinding into these various elements. So this is just a high level kind of snapshot of the elements. And we acknowledge that we can't build everything right now, but we're future proofing. We're hoping to be able to be ready to add these to the pathway whenever it becomes possible. So now I'll just zoom in on 3 key elements. So these ones are really the heart of the consultation. So have a good look at them, and we've got more information on these on Social Pinpoint and the website. And so we're really keen to get your thoughts on these elements, the design of them, that kind of look and feel, as well as where they'll be located. I'm not going to go into the location of all of them in this presentation, so do jump onto Social Pinpoint and you can comment on those. So these 3 that are important to us at this point is the lookouts, water access and nature play. And so as Megan touched on, these have been developed alongside the CLG. So pods, these create little areas to step off from the boardwalk, to rest, pause, take in the fabulous views of Te Whau. And they're all appended onto the boardwalk and can kind of be added on in the future as well. The shape of them, you'll see it's a bit irregular. This reflects the carved form of the traditional fishing floats that were made from the native faux timber. Water access, so that's in the middle. So we've got new points of water access as well as formalising some of the existing water access. We've got 3 types of water access, and these vary depending on the location. And the designs of these are still being developed by each location, site specific. So the 3 types that we have, vehicle water access, so where you can load your boat, like at Archibald Reserve, small paddlecraft, and then pedestrian and cyclist water access, which is what's currently shown on the screen. So these have been located with the help of CLG, and we've taken into account channel depths, widths, sheltered points, and sort of trying to achieve an even spread across the length of the pathway. And then we've got the nature play. So these are embedded across the park, and I think I saw a question pop up before, which is really good. So yeah, so these play elements will be embedded across the pathway, and they provide opportunities for play and interaction, as well as a way to weave in some of those pūrākau, the stories. There'll be various different types of elements. This is just one that we're showing. There'll be climbing logs, stepping stones, nets, ropes, etc. So this is an example of one of the pods. So the design intent of these, as I mentioned, is to pause, rest, meet up with other people. They might be a point where you can say, let's meet at the pod and then go from a walk from there. And they're also to take in those beautiful views, bird watching, if that's your thing. And they're located to take advantage of the view shafts. So some are in high points, some are at lower areas. Anywhere where there's kind of a view should be celebrated. As I mentioned, there's potential for that pūrākau storytelling and interpretation to be incorporated into the design of these. This is one of the water access types. So this one is when it's appended onto one of the pods, which we just saw on the last slide. So the design intent of these is to create access and engagement with Te Whau. As I said, these have been spread across the length of the pathway, and we've looked at those locations in coordination with the CLG. There's various types, ones where we've got direct launching, and then other ones which are just more a stopping point to rest and explore. So this one, which is the type C, is the latter, one where you can stop, tie up your kayak, hop out, stretch your legs, and have a little bit of a exploration of the boardwalk. If you're walking along the boardwalk, then it's an opportunity to wade, swim, or for reflection. This is another type of water access. This one is what we refer to as type B. So this one is more for the small paddle craft, so where you can actually launch your kayaks with ease. So they'll have access to the street network and parking that's along the street, and you'll be able to tow your kayak down and then hop in from there. So some of these are retrofitting existing access, like at Roberts Field, and quite often these will be tidal. And then nature play. So yeah, again, spread across the land-based parts of the pathway. And as I was mentioning, we've got the various different types. Each one will sort of be based on a different theme, which ties into that integration of pūrākau storytelling. We might be able to integrate whakapapa, which is the naming, and create moments of interest and discovery, educational opportunities for children to kind of engage with. They'll all be made of sort of more natural materials and have a consistent and cohesive language across them. So the intention here is to have something that is sort of more natural and that ties back into the landscape and is a bit more explorative for children. There's already a good number of traditional kind of playgrounds along the route, which have your sort of, your standard swing and slides. And so these ones are sort of intended to be a bit smaller, more bespoke, and they're just moments for children to kind of interact as they're progressing along the pathway, and they lead on to those bigger playground moments. So these ones might be a bit smaller than some of the traditional play elements, like what you might see at Archibald Reserve at the moment. Yeah, but so it's sort of a more natural and engaging opportunity. And so then just to summarise on that, we're really keen to get your feedback on those three elements, which is the pod, the water access and the nature play. I think Sarah's going to touch on how you can provide some of this feedback online. There's a lot more information on the website and on Social Pinpoint.
Thank you, Anna. That's terrific. So yeah, I know during those community liaison meetings, these pods, the lookout, the water access, nature play, were a point of great interest to those community representatives, and lots of discussion about how we can extend those opportunities to local families, whānau kids who wouldn't normally be able to kayak on the river. That's some of the stuff Tony was talking about, building community and creating opportunity and just deepening the value and meaning of the whole thing. So if you've got any of those stories and ideas, we would love to hear them. Special places that we don't know about that you do, that you'd like to see celebrated, but also different ways of making sure that people who wouldn't otherwise have these opportunities can feel really part of this and engaged in it. So as part of that discussion about bringing the community voice into the project, next up is Sarah McCormick from Becca, who's the stakeholder engagement lead. And Sarah's going to talk to you about ways that you can provide your feedback into the project.
Kia ora Annette, ko Sarah McCormick tōku ingoa. So my name's Sarah McCormick. I'm the stakeholder engagement lead for the project. I work for Becca. I've had the privilege of working on this project since about 2019 when we were working with Auckland Council on the resource consent. So I did a bit of the social impact assessment and some of the landowner engagement at that stage. So it's been great to see this move through to this more detailed design phase and gearing up for construction. It's very exciting. So this slide here is just a recap. Again, this has been mentioned a couple of times, but feedback has really shaped the project to date, and it was great to hear from Megan. A big highlight has been this community liaison group and really that valuable group and using them as that sounding board. I know personally for me, having a group of really onto it people, locals, we've tested a lot of this engagement material as well. So that's been invaluable to have them alongside us. This image on the screen here on the left just is a really quick summary we've got on the website, which shows just a snapshot of where the boardwalk has been changed or things have been moved based on feedback. So really has, as the project's gone along, morphed because of that. And overall, there's been a really strong support for the project. People really want it to happen, and a lot of people are excited, and especially hearing that more parts of it are going to be built. We are moving more into designing the more detailed parts of the pathway. So previous engagement has really focused on that look and feel, the alignment, getting that right, and the sort of materials and colours. Now we're moving into sort of more of those detailed elements that Anna touched on before. This is why we're here tonight and why we're hoping a lot of you will give your feedback, and some of you have already given some great points in the chat, which we will add to our feedback responses as well. The key thing really, just to reiterate, are those areas of play, access and rest that Anna was talking you through. So we want feedback particularly on the location, from a local and user perspective, visitors, have we got those locations right? Is there anything we need to change, amend, move? And then the design, how do you like the look of that in that particular location? That's going to be really important for the team to then firm up those designs prior to getting some of the parts constructed next year. This slide is my final slide before we get into some questions and answers. There's been some great ones in the chat I'm keen to get into and hear from more people in the project. So in terms of getting that feedback from you, we've got a few different ways you can do that. The exciting one we've been working on for a while now is our social pinpoint site. So that's where you can click into the map, have a look at those particular elements, those areas that Anna was talking about, click on where they are, have a look at what they might look like. There's a sort of example design in there, and then you can drop your feedback into that map. Everyone can see it, it's live, and we've also got a chat bot on the side that will ask and prompt more questions. So that's a really great way for us to get that particular feedback on locations and design of those elements. We've also got a online feedback form through the Auckland Council Have Your Say site, which is an online survey, and there's also a hard copy form if you want to download it and send it back to us. And we've got an email address which we will continue to monitor, and you're welcome to send through any thoughts as you have them. And we've got a great website that has been a awesome thing the Trust in particular has done. So there's heaps of information on the website. There's the link there, but if you Google to Whau, it should be one of the first ones that comes up. And there's a lot of new information on there. The landscape plans that Anna just went through, there's even more detail on the website. Have a look and don't hesitate to get in touch if you need us to show you where to go to find it. And we'll also upload this presentation on the website too, so you've got that there. So this feedback ultimately will go into that detailed design that the project team and a lot of the people on the call here are doing that detailed design. So they're listening in now, and we'll be feeding that into their work. So detailed design sort of wrapping up early next year, and then into construction, which Jill had spoken about, and we'll talk a bit about in a second too. And we'll summarise this feedback and have it online as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd really recommend you have a look at Social Pinpoint. It's such fun and very, very easy to use. And if you didn't have an opinion before you saw it, you will, because it opens up in an incredibly interesting visual way that whole pathway. And really, it's definitely worth dropping in to have a look at. So you'll find that on the Te Whau Pathways website, the connection to that. So Jill's going to talk about the next steps ahead of us.
So there's quite a bit of information, isn't there? It's a very large project and there's a lot going on. But for our next steps, we're going to be completing the details, the drawings, and once we've got our detailed design, then we'll have the construction program confirmed. But there is still lots to do. We need to incorporate the consultation feedback into the design. We need to start looking at procuring materials for you can imagine at the moment with the way things are that there's some really long lead-in times, and so it's really critical that we start ordering so we can start building. We'll also be looking to get some early works done out on site, so people may see some activity, which will be very exciting, but of course we'll let you know beforehand, and we'll be putting that information out there if we're going to be doing any site setup or any clearance of vegetation or any mangrove removal. So the Te Whau Pathway website is going to be a really good source of information for you. We are yet to finalise the dates for all of these next steps, but we are very keen to keep you updated along the way, and we will let you know when construction is about to start. But there is still quite a bit of work to be done. So the Auckland Council and the Whau Coastal Walkway Environmental Trust will continue to seek funding for the remaining sections of the pathway. And as Tony pointed out, there's also a lot of work that's going on that's not just the pathway, but some of those wider project benefits that we're really keen to continue engaging with the community about. Every time we construct a section of pathway, if it's on land, we'll be very eager to host community planting events, get the schools involved, and just ensure that people are feeling that it's their space and they can get out there and enjoy it. There's still plenty to do, and so we hope to continue with your support. It's great to see the numbers of people that have turned out today, and look forward to answering all the questions.
Thanks so much, Joan. So yeah, this is your chance, your space. So as well as all of the speakers that you've heard tonight, there's another 10 to a dozen experts listening in who can answer questions about ecology and the engineering design, sustainability, various design elements, the project scope, funding timelines, construction, resource consenting, the connections, all sorts of questions. But we've already got quite a few here, so Kelly's going to have to go through some of those. Kelly, what's been appearing in the chat box while we've been talking?
I can run one through for you, Annette. I've got Sarah here. So this is one from Kate from earlier. So this was about clarifying the link between the Northwestern Motorway and the Te Atatū South Boat Club. So it looks like on a plan we'd shown it was not currently funded. Can you confirm this? So that link, that might be a good one for you, Graham. Are you there, Graham? Maybe just introduce yourself as well.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Graham Hooper. I think my background is actually a shot of the section from Bridge Ave to State Highway 16. So that section is funded. If what you're specifically referencing is from State Highway 16, when it says on that image to the bottom of Bridge Avenue, that is to be constructed as well. Hopefully an easy question.
Cool. Okay, so there was a question about, and I think there was a little bit of back and forth on it, but I'm sort of interested in this a bit more, which is there's sections of boardwalk and we've got sections of concrete path, and there was a question about the width of the concrete paths being about 3 meters, the boardwalk widens to 4, and sort of future proofing that so that maybe concrete paths can also be widened. Is someone able to talk to that?
I can
Anna?
maybe
Cool.
touch on just a little part of that from a design point of view. Maybe if you could just jump to that proposed elements page, Sarah.
Yeah.
So where we've got a transition from boardwalk to an existing concrete path, the boardwalk will continue to be 4 meters in width. And at that landing point, there might be a flare in the concrete, sort of a widened area, and then that'll taper back down to the 3 meters. So that'll be in the concrete. And so you can see there in the middle of this page that's up, there's one with a little purple dash next to it that says transitions. So that's sort of a little visual example of what we might expect where the boardwalk ties into the concrete. So there'll be some opportunities there for wayfinding and things like that. But certainly the boardwalk won't narrow down. That will remain being the 4 metres, and then the concrete will be built up to that. So I think the question was around future-proofing it for a wider concrete footpath in the future. So yes, I think that will be future-proofed.
Thanks, Anna. There's another question here, which I think is a really good one as well, about the height levels of the pathway, in particular where it's, this boardwalk where it's going over the water, and what the height of that over some of the tributaries as they enter the Whau River. So that probably is a bit of a Graham question, maybe a James question. Anyone?
Yeah, I can go. I provided some answers, I think, to both Darren and Ben in the chats, but probably for everyone's reference as well. So through the resource consent process, we agreed on setting the height. It had to take into account a number of things in terms of constructability and also sea level rise. And we had to assume through that resource consent process that the amount of substructure that we would need to be able to build it. And at that point in time, we weren't 100% sure on what the substructure would be built of. So that process, in long story short, mean high water springs, where I guess what people would call high tide, there'll be a minimum gap of 1.06 metres for current tides, and that may reduce over time as sea level rise occurs. But then equally, there'll be longer periods on the tides on each side to enable access underneath. And there was also a related question about, and just to finish that, sorry, that it may very well be that the substructure doesn't need to be that deep. Through the resource consent process, we assumed 42 centimetres, and a lot of the design work that's going on now may shrink that 42 centimetres to allow a bit more head height. And the other question, which was specifically around the Whau Creek section, so that's what we consider to be a special crossing. There's a number of them through the alignment, and I'll send the details through, but through the appeal process, we agreed to increase that height by another 1.5 metres, which gets larger boats up through that creek.
Cool, thanks, Graham. There is a question about environmental impacts of the build and mitigating those, which is a good question. There's a few experts on the line and who've been involved in some of the resource consent and also now construction. Henry, I think you're on the line. Do you want to introduce yourself and maybe chat through a little bit of the sustainability considerations?
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Henry and I'm from Becca and the sustainability team. Basically, what we're doing is for the wider project, we are going for an Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia sustainability rating. And basically what that does is it challenges the project team to sort of try and uptake sustainable solutions and options, and really challenges them to challenge the status quo and what we typically look at as standard practice. But basically it's a really good user guide that covers a whole lot of topics ranging from water quality to carbon and energy use, right across the board. So we use that to sort of springboard off and pick up sustainable options throughout the design process. And I guess a good example of that is probably using the carbon use credit. So we had a materials options assessment earlier on in the project where we were looking at key material used throughout the build, so from the piles through to the decking material and the grillage. So we compared materials like concrete, steel, that fibre reinforced plastic material we were talking about before, and we looked at the total carbon emissions to sort of produce those materials and to ship them to New Zealand right through that entire process, and provided that information to the project team so that they can use that in their decision making framework. Yeah, that's probably it from me. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Henry. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself maybe and talk through a bit of the construction, maybe some of those environmental impacts and how you're considering those as you go along?
Yep, sure. Good evening, everyone. So my name's Sam Couch. I'm from Hab Construction. We've been providing constructability advice and working very closely with Becca Land Lab and Auckland Council, going through the design elements as it progresses and ensuring we're maximising opportunities to reduce wastage and streamline construction. The biggest focus for us is it's a very challenging environment to build in, so we're looking for every opportunity to manufacture components off-site under controlled conditions where we can maintain safe environmental standards. We do have to build through a very sensitive coastal marine environment, and there are a number of resource consent conditions, not just relating to the design, but also relating to what we need to do before we enter those areas, such as surveying wildlife, lizards, birds, bats, only operating or doing critical activities such as vegetation clearance outside of nesting seasons or hibernation in the case of lizards. So we have very tight windows which we have to undertake certain activities in. So Jill talked to some early works such as vegetation clearance. They may happen in advance of the main construction works just to slot in around those key timeframes. Yeah, most of the plant that we'll be looking to construct the boardwalk with will be fairly small. We're looking to utilise the structure itself to build the boardwalk progressively, which removes the requirement for other structures in the CMA, in the coastal marine area. Hopefully that's answered pretty much everything, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And we've got Simon on the call from Auckland Transport. This one's for you, Simon. One came through a bit earlier, and I'm sorry if you might have answered this one in the chat, about the pathway and its connection to the new Lynn Avondale path. I wonder if that's something you could talk to, or hey, Simon.
Kia ora koutou, ko Simon Vincent, toko ingoa. Yeah, so I think actually Jill's answered this already. So it is very important that these connections are established, and so Te Whau pathway and Bernulin to Avondale will have a good connection, as we've heard earlier. Funding coming through is going to be critical to that. But I guess I would just add that there are other elements of work which will be coming along, which will complement Te Whau as well. So in the Henderson Massey area, the Henderson cycle connections are underway, which is looking at having McLeod Road is one of the areas they're looking at putting connections straight from Henderson all the way through McLeod and down to Te Whau. And likewise for the Whau local border area, the connected communities, which is looking at the new North Road and then down onto Rosebank, which will come through, which will also, alongside the the Newlyn to Avondale path, will add another dimension to the connections. Kia ora.
Thanks so much, Simon. So I think there's been a lot covered, and we are doing quite well on time, but appreciate that this is people's evenings here. So I might just have two more questions, which I think are really good ones to answer. Any other questions, again, we will compile and put on the website for answering. So the first one I wanted to ask was about the privacy for property owners and how that's been taken into account along the pathway. So that's more about the resource consent process, I think. So again, sorry, Graham, or maybe even Jill, that might be a good one for you. How have we tackled that?
Yep, so that certainly was a discussion point through the resource consent process. A lot of individual landowners had expressed concern about landscape visual effects. I think there was a comment in the discussion about lighting as an example in terms of light spill at night, in terms of that consideration. So there's going to be light built into the handrail to reduce that light spill. In terms of those landscape privacy effects, I guess predominantly there would be, I don't know the exact nature of the situation of the person that's made the comment, but primarily you have two types. You have the landward sections where the pathway might be getting quite close, and then you have the boardwalk, which is obviously not directly on their land or directly close to them. We've worked closely in previous sections with landowners, looking at planting, particularly along some margins, and in some cases fencing has been used as a mechanism as well. So if people on the chat have particular concerns about their direct properties, to please get in touch with either Jill or myself, and we could show you the specifics of their site or their land and how it would relate directly to them. Would probably be the easiest.
Thanks, Graham. Appreciate that. So the one other question I've got from me, Annette, is there was one around pods and pontoons, and are they those pods or water access points, will they be floating pontoons? Anna.
So yeah, we've got some different types of water access. So when it's off a pod, which is connected onto the boardwalk, this typically will be a stepped down water access, and that allows for some such tidal fluctuations and providing access into the channel. Obviously at a very low tide, in some cases there may not be access directly to water, but we have tried to locate them in sort of deeper channels. So yeah, so that access off a boardwalk will be stepped and fixed. When we have access off land, these ones provide greater opportunities to have floating pontoons. There may be some where they are a fixed option as well, so something like a jetty. We're sort of exploring all these options at the moment, and they are very site specific, so depending on the terrain of the landscape as well as the depth of the channel and the mangroves around, etc. So yeah, so there'll be floating pontoons as well as fixed options.
Well done. Is that the last of your questions there, Kelly, you think?
Yeah, I think that's it. I just again will pop other ones on the website, and thank you all very much, and also don't hesitate to pop other ones onto the social pinpoint site. There's already some great questions there too. So
And thanks to all the presenters tonight and the experts listening in to answer those questions. Please do visit the website. That's got everything on it. It's comprehensive, and it will direct you to all the options for how to have your say on this. There's many ways to do it. And again, share that website around your own networks, because we are very, very keen to hear from you. There was the email too, that you're welcome to email directly into the program and be in touch that way. But stay in touch, and we will stay in touch with you as this progresses into the next very exciting phase. So kia ora everybody, thank you so much. Pō mārie.